We told ourselves a lot about the box model. We also saw how working with the box model looks like in practice. And now I would like to tell you something about the box sizing property, which determines how the size of our box is calculated, how our entire element including the content, padding and border is determined by its width and height. But let's recall once again how the size of our entire box is calculated by default. The width and the height properties specify only the content box of our element. To these values, we have to add the values of the padding and the border properties to get the actual size of our entire element. The padding and the border by default extend our element by their value. As we know, the margin is outside our box, so it's not added. The default way of calculating the actual size of our box is therefore unpractical because we cannot quickly tell how much space our element actually occupies. We have to check and add in our head the values from several properties to calculate it. The second downside of this solution is the fact that it is very easy to destroy the structure of our website this way. It is enough to slightly modify, for example, the padding or the border, and our element becomes larger than it was. It no longer fits the place we planned. It goes to the new line and moves the other elements on our website. I want to show it to you with an example. For this, I use the float left property, which we will get to know in some time in this course. In short, this property allows us to set two block elements next to each other in one line, and that's what we want to do now. We have a 780 pixel space in which we were able to fit two divs perfectly. The box of one element is 320 pixels wide and the other is 460 pixels wide. As you can see, the base value for the width of these elements is smaller because it concerns only the content box of these elements. We need to add the padding and the border to these values to get their actual width. But if we increase the padding of one of the elements a little, that element will grow and the whole structure will be destroyed. Both elements do not fit in one line anymore. And now to put both elements back in one line, we have to recalculate the values of the border, padding, decrease the value of the base width, and so on. This is tedious and very impractical. And this is because the box sizing property and its default value, which is content box. This property defines how the browser interprets the width and the height properties of the element. The default value of content box means that these properties are to indicate the dimensions of only the content box of our element, not the entire box including the padding and the border. But we can change the default value for the box sizing property to border box. I even showed it in the video where I prepared a CSS style file to start a work in a project. This file has also been shared with you, and you can find exactly the same record as on this slide in it. In that file, we reset the margins and the paddings, and the box sizing property for all the elements was set to border box. Box sizing border box defines the height and the width of the element as it is on the website, including the padding and the border. We can only set two values for the box sizing property. Content box, which is the default and only includes the dimensions of our content space, and the border box, which covers the dimensions of our entire element, including the padding and the border. We can't set this value to padding box. There's simply no such value. Let's see it with an example. The element on this slide already has a box sizing specified to the border box. It also has a certain height and width. And as you can see, the values for the width and the height of this element coincide with its actual dimensions. Its height and width also include the previously specified padding and border. But then what happens if the padding and the border don't expand our element? It's simple, they take the space from the content box. Instead of expanding the entire element, they reduce its content space. Now by increasing the padding and the border of this element, it will still have the dimensions specified with the width and the height properties, as you can see perfectly on this slide. The padding and the border of our element have been increased, but the size of our element remained the same. However, the space for our content has shrunk. This is extremely convenient because it allows you to easily define the true size of our elements and plan their placement on the websites. If you change the padding or the border of the elements later, these elements will still retain their original size, and the changes that will take place would take place only inside these elements. Now let's check it out in practice.